Welcome back. So today we are talking about the 5 steps to negotiate a flexible work arrangement.
I love this topic.
Yes, you do. You do. And you have lots of knowledge to share with our audience. So I think it's really important to start with knowing what you need, right?
Or also even just knowing what flexibility means, because we use the word very generally and often inappropriately.
Yeah.
So flexible working, what Kelley was alluding to is that my prior company was a flexible workplace consulting company.
Right.
We helped existing organizations set up flexible work policies, and we placed mostly moms into flexible work arrangements. So flexible work is anything outside of the 9 to 5, 5 days a week in the office structure. So that could include full-time hours, but worked remotely.
Right.
Or we see that much more, obviously, post-COVID, or some type of hybrid 3-2 or 2-3 in the office working remotely. That's one. But it also could mean 40 hours done in a compressed fashion. So maybe it's 4 10-hour days.
Right.
And then Fridays are completely off, or Mondays or Wednesdays, whatever day it is, are completely off. It could be a job share, where
Okay.
2 people share one job and the salary related to that job, and they work half time each, usually overlapping on one day. It could also be part-time hours. But part-time hours, let's say you're going to work 30 hours a week, that could be 5 days a week working 6 hours. So you're getting your kids on the bus and getting home in time for their return bus. Or it could be 3 days, 10 hours, and 2 days off. So lots of different ways to do flexibility. And then the last one, those are all employment situations. But another one, again, this is often used incorrectly as an interchangeable descriptor, but there's temporary or project work where you're not an employee and you're freelancing. That's another way to work flexibly. So first, understand what flexibility is. And then, as you said, understand what it is that you need.
Yes.
So the example I gave, I know, so for me, when I went back to work, my kids were young, and I was only working 2 days a week because it was easier for me to do 2 long days. I had a woman, a nanny that came in for those 2 days, and everybody was kind of doing their thing. But then once they were all in school,
that could change.
It was so much easier for me to just work when they were in school. And then be available to get them on the bus in the morning and be available to get them off the bus in the afternoon. And then I wasn't working. I had 4 kids very close in age. I wasn't really working after that. As I got older, I worked fewer days. Still, I was always working part-time hours, but now I was able to work after school because they were going off to their sports practice or whatever. So really that need for flexibility will change throughout your parenting, if parenting is the reason that you want to work flexibly. So really understanding that and keeping the door open for it changing.
Right.
Okay.
So step 2 is to do your research, right? Get yourself educated about, the policies of the company and what is the industry standard.
And that's a big piece, because your company may be behind the times. So really knowing what your competitors are doing. And I would also look at it regionally.
Yes.
So we're in the Northeast, things tend to be a little bit more progressive here. But in other parts of the country, something like a flex time schedule or a job share might be like, hieroglyphics, foreign language to them. So understanding both institutionally, what are our policies? There may be a really robust flexible work policy at your organization that you know nothing about because your manager isn't really good at executing on it.
Right.
So meet with your HR rep and find out.
Okay.
And that should all be public knowledge. And it's probably available to you online, even if you don't want to let HR
Well,
know.
and to the point of the conversation you and I were having earlier, this is changing in real time, right? We're now in a post-COVID era. There is, we've gone from, in some cases, fully remote to more of a hybrid to now we want you all back in the office. So being educated just from the standpoint of what are the changes that are happening.
And I think you bring up a good point too, kind of understanding the history of things, because you may be in an organization right now where they're really tightening the belt and they want everybody in 5 days a week. But pre-COVID, they had a flexible work policy and people were doing hybrid work. So really getting educated on institutionally, regionally, and then industry-wide. What should I expect? What's kind of the standard?
Okay, so the next thing, this is number 3, is to formulate your ask.
Exactly.
This is critical. You don't want to get it wrong, and you don't want to be flubbing it when you're in there, right? So write it down. I'm a big believer in writing things down. Get a yellow pad and write down, okay, these are the things that I want. Make it in your mind, know what you want and what would be good enough. Okay.
But also know
I think that's a really good way to come at it.
Yep.
A really good way.
And I think the third piece is also know if there's a boundary or a solution that you won't accept. If working 5 days a week in the office is just not something you can do, then know that.
What is my hard no?
And know that you need to maybe be prepared to walk away.
Yep.
All right. So kind of knowing what your boundaries are on that ask, and then making sure that when you do that ask, that you do the work, you know what you're asking for, you've written it down, that you understand how your customers' needs are going to be met. Yep. So I can tell you as a manager, if you come to me and you say, Susan, I'm looking to work on a new schedule. Let me tell you how it will work out. If you do all that work for me, this is how I'll handle my West Coast calls because I'm going to be leaving at 3. This is how I'm going to handle this particular client who expects 24/7 white glove service. This is how I'm going to handle this. Making sure that it's no work on the manager's behalf. Really, the onus on creating a flexible work schedule is all on the employee.
Yes.
Well, to justify it, to explain it, to describe it, to make sure that you can explain how your targets will be met. My job as the manager is just to be your advocate.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And I think that's a really good distinction to make because you don't want to go in there and make this ask without the solutions because your manager is going to be on the defense.
Like, I'm
thinking,
already
oh my
working
gosh,
so
I am
hard.
so overworked and I have so much going on. So it's kind of having that empathy for your manager of like, listen, I know this is.
I figured it out.
Yes. Like, I know this is something that might be a bit outside the norm. So let me tell you how it's going to work. Let me come to this with a solution.
We talk through the same kind of structure when it comes to maternity leave.
Oh, absolutely.
And if any of you are newly pregnant or planning on getting pregnant, you'll want to look for our course on how to do that because it's a very similar situation where the manager's like, oh my God.
Yes.
But you're going to make it all work for them.
Yes. Okay. So you've really formulated what your ask is going to be. You've written it down. You're clear about it. Now, the energy with which you bring it to the table when you walk through that manager's threshold of their door, you have to pitch it confidently. You have to pitch it confidently.
And part of that confidence is making sure that you are looking at the timing.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite things to do, I was just working with one of my nieces on this. She's about to negotiate something. She's being promoted. And so I gave her the advice I give our students, which is make an appointment. Yes. A couple things happen when you make an appointment.
Yes, you are not having this conversation
in the restroom or
just when they stop by your desk even to ask you a question about something else, right?
You're making a very professional request and presenting a professional solution. It needs to be done in a professional way where you're both sitting in a room without other distractions. But to set it up, when you email your manager and say, Kelley, I want to get 10 minutes on your calendar, or maybe 15 minutes on your calendar, the first thing Kelley will do is say, well, what do you want to talk about? Yeah. And you're going to say, you know what? It's not a big deal. It's just something I want to review with you. And I prefer to do it sitting down. Or I prefer to do it in your office.
This is setting up a dynamic.
So your manager most likely is panicked that you're going to quit because that's what you do when you're going to give your resignation. So it gets them a little off their footing. And this just works so beautifully with my niece because she was making a big ask. And I said, just trust me. He was so relieved when she came in because he said, oh my God, I thought you were going to quit, that he would have given her anything. So I'm not saying that your boss will give you anything, but you're setting that professional boundary that this is going to be a conversation we have in a room with a closed door where we're both sitting down and we're not distracted. And adding that little bit of element of surprise, it tips the scales a little bit more in your favor. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the very last one, number 5, is to have a plan B. Right. So if it doesn't go well, and I loved how you said that earlier, that you want to have like sort of your threshold, this is a no-go. Yeah. But having a plan B. Yeah. So you want to speak to that?
So the interesting thing is that when you're asking, the assumption is if you're asking for something flexible, that you're already working there. So I think it would be unless your personal situation has changed so drastically that without getting that flexible work arrangement, you can't stay. Your plan B may not be quitting. Right. But it may be something like, you know what, Kelley? My life situation has changed. I now have an elder parent living with me, and I don't have daily care for that parent. My siblings and I are trying to figure it out. Yeah. But I will not be able to work here on site 5 days a week. I could cobble it together for the next couple of months, but at a certain point, I'm going to need that day. Yeah. So it's a strategy we've taught in prior videos. What can we do to make that work?
Right. Now, so it's the we.
What can we do? And then now Kelley's she's sharing the problem with me. If it's something more that's lifestyle oriented, it's something more of, I want it more than I need it. It might be something like, Kelley, I understand this is not the best time to be asking for this because we have 2 people out on leave. Can we revisit this in 90 days? Because I've just given this proposal to you. I'm so confident in this proposal. I actually think I'll do better work and more of it if I can work a compressed work week or whatever it is. Okay.
Yeah. So it's just giving options, and not every option has to be that you're leaving. Right.
But sometimes it is.
Yeah, and sometimes it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is.
Yeah.
So there you have it, how to negotiate a flexible work arrangement. If you liked what you heard today, make sure that you like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you want to learn more about us and our programming, you can visit us at www.preparetolaunchu.com.